Hi guys, in this discussion of the book India That Is Bharat by Sai Deepak, we learn what Dr. Vikram Sampath has to say about the book. World over, academic discourse is rife with decolonial arguments that have been explicit in their challenge to insular homogeneity of historical narratives, nomenclatures and historio-geographical frameworks emanating from Europe. These movements of reclamation and reparatory justice rely on what is popularly called epistemic disobedience. I love this term. Epistemic disobedience that seeks to reimagine and reconstruct our world, our notions of modernity and rationality from the viewpoint and lived experiences of hitherto enslaved colonies. Much of this scholarship has so far emanated from Latin American and African countries. Asia, in particular India, which has been the longest sufferer of colonialism, is conspicuous by the lack of her adequate representation in this discourse. The tide, however, seems to be changing for the better now. Through this magisterial trilogy, advocate and scholar Sai Deepak successfully fills a huge vacuum in the corpus of decolonial scholarship from a uniquely empathetic Indian perspective. In a masterful manner, Sai Deepak traces the global history of colonialism, India's unfortunate tryst with it, and importantly, inquires its impact on the emergence of a colonial consciousness. Combining the skills of an adept lawyer and a tenacious researcher, Sai Deepak references a wide and impressive array of archival literature to make a compelling argument that in the case of India, decoloniality is not merely an option, but a civilizational imperative, which we simply cannot afford to delay any further. Gleaning from the works of several Indic as well as Western decolonial scholars and policymakers and legislative debates, he makes a richly layered case in this eminently readable treatise on how, despite being technically free from colonialism with the achievement of freedom, our minds are far from being decolonized. It is this coloniality that regularly manifests itself in judicial pronouncements on Indic faith-based matters, the state's continued stranglehold and perverse intervention in the majority's places of worship, or the casual axiomatic pronouncements of the elite who debunk the very idea of our existence as a nation ever, pathetically attributing this as well as other economic milestones such as railways, schools, etc. to the British Raj. Not the one to fear calling a spade by its name in the interests of political correctness, Sai Deepak convincingly busts each of these myths and symptoms through the heft of his intellect and the might of his fact-based argument. It would become amply clear to any discerning reader too, just as Sai Deepak rightly concludes by taking recourse to pop culture, that European coloniality is like the Matrix. One just needs to become aware of it, after which it is impossible to unsee it, especially in matters of religion, polity, education, economics and the law. A must-read tribute to the Indic civilization for anyone serious about understanding the pernicious trajectory of invasive colonialism and the lingering colonial consciousness in the independent Indian, or should we term this as he does, Bharatiya mind, and how to consciously work towards reversing it. Dr. Vikram Sampath, historian, author and adjunct senior research fellow at Monash University, and of course, writer of the heroic double book on Veer Savarkar.